Alright, in this video we're going to be looking at our final way that we're going to be writing equations of lines. And we've talked about two different kinds of forms so far. The first form we talked about was slope-intercept form. And then we talked about standard form, and we will review those two here in just a second. But what our lesson today is going to focus on is called point-slope form. And it's just another way to write the equation of a line, and based exactly on what it says. If you have a point or an ordered pair that's on the line, and if you know the slope, you'll want to use this form. Okay, so point-slope form is what we're going to look at today. Now let's go ahead real quick and review the other forms that we've talked about and what they look like, and then I will show you what point-slope form looks like. So first of all, we did slope-intercept form. So that was when your equation was solved for y. So y equals mx plus b. And it was called slope-intercept form because they gave you the slope, which was the m, and they flat out gave you the y-intercept, which was b. Alright, and then the second form we talked about was standard form. So that was when you had your x and your y together on the same side. Okay, so something a little more familiar, something like 2x plus 3y equals 9. That would be in standard form. Okay, and then what we're going to look at today is called point-slope form. So here's what that's going to look like, and it may look pretty confusing at first. I will tell you, you will have this formula given to you on the test, on the map test. You just need to know where to put numbers in. So point-slope form, you have y minus y1 equals m, which you should recognize as the slope, times the quantity of x minus x1. So that's a lot of letters there. Again, I'm going to show you exactly where to plug in your numbers and exactly how it needs to look like. Alright, so let's jump right in. Before we get into actually how to write the equation, I want to practice drawing some lines first. Okay, so on this graph, I have a dot on the graph, an ordered pair plotted at 3, 2, and then I've given you one piece of information. I gave you the slope, which is 1/3. So all the directions would say to do is to draw a line through this point with the given slope. So all we got to do is draw the line. So I know my line has to go through this ordered pair right here at 3, 2. And I'm just going to use my slope, rise over run, to get my second point, and then I can just draw a line. So from this red dot, I'm going to rise 1, and I'm going to run 3. And since my graph is kind of small, I'm actually going to do that one more time. So there's my line right there. And that's all you would need to do for a direction like that if all they asked you to do was to draw the line. So I've given a point, given a slope, get the line drawn. Let's do one more like that. Okay, we have an ordered pair up here at -4, 6. And then your slope is -2. So keep in mind, for our slope, -2 is actually -2 over 1. So I'm going to end up rising a -2 and running 1. So that means I'm going to come down 2 and right 1. And down 2 and right 1. And I'll go ahead and connect those with a line right there. There's your line. Okay, so again, this is what your equation in point slope form will look like. So what we're going to do now is we're going to break this down, and I'm going to show you exactly where things are going to get plugged in. And again, you will be given this equation form for your test. You just have to know where to plug numbers in. Okay, so here's what it's going to look like. You're given a slope. In this case, it's -3. And you're given a point, which is -4, 6. So the one thing we have to keep in mind is in an ordered pair, remember it always goes x and then y. You're going to have to keep those separate. Okay, so let's look at our point slope form again. Okay, so my slope, easy. That's going to go right in place of the m. Okay, and then your coordinates, the x and y coordinates, are actually going to go in place of the x1 and the y1. And then the other, just the plain x and y, are going to stay where they are. So this is going to become y minus 6 equals -3, and then times the quantity of x minus, but look, this x coordinate is actually a -4, so be careful with your negatives. Okay, and I'm going to clean this up a little bit. The only way I'm going to clean it up is I'm going to notice, okay, well, this minus a negative right here would actually become a plus. So I would write x plus 4. And if the directions just simply say to write it in point slope form, that's all you need to do. Just leave it just like that. Okay, let's do another one like that. So if I were going to take this equation and I were going to solve it for y, so I'm going to come up over here to the side. The first thing I would need to do when we're solving equations is the distributive property. So we would need to distribute over here. You get -3x minus 12. And then to get that y by itself, I would add 6 to each side. So that would become -3x minus 6. And that would be in slope-intercept form. So again, if you're asked to put it in slope-intercept form, you would just need to solve it for y, and that would be it. This time our slope is -4/3, and the point we have to go through is 3, -1, so we want to write the equation of that in point slope form. So again, here's our point slope form. And I'm just going to plug in numbers where they go. Okay, so y minus, well, y is a -1 equals, my slope is -4/3, and then x minus, your x coordinate is 3. Now again, I notice right here this minus and negative would actually become a plus. So I'm just going to clean that up a little bit. And that would be your equation in point slope form. Now, you may be asked to write the equation in slope-intercept form, and that would just mean, okay, now you need to solve it for y. Okay, so I actually want to look back at the previous example that we did. Now, with an example like this, you are only given 2 points. You're not given the slope. Okay, so it's been a little while since we've found the slope between 2 points when you don't have a graph. So keep in mind, it's the change in y values over the change in x values. So I can write an equation in point slope form, I just have to figure out the slope first. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to have, remember, it doesn't matter which number you choose first. I'm going to do this one first. So 3 minus 0, but then for the x's it would have to be -2 minus a -3, so be careful of that. So I get 3 over, and then let's see, this minus a negative would become a plus, so -2 plus 3 is 1. So my slope is just going to be 3. Then, when I go to put it in point slope form, 3 is going to be my slope, but when you go to plug in an x and a y, it does not matter which ordered pair you choose. You can use either one, because when you end up solving them for y, you'll end up getting the same answer. But let's just go ahead and plug in this first ordered pair. So I'm going to have y minus 0 equals 3 times x minus a -3, which is going to make it x plus 3. Okay, so that would be your equation in point slope form, and really you wouldn't even need this -0 part. You can have it there, but it's not necessary. If you were asked to write it in slope-intercept form, you would just need to solve it. Distribute, so y equals 3x plus 9. So just make sure you pay attention to the directions, know what they're asking for you. Okay, let's do one more just like. Okay, so we have -6, 10, and we have 6, -10. We want to write an equation of a line going through those 2 points. So, we got to find the slope first. So y minus y, so I'm going to do 10 minus a -10, and then for the x's, -6 minus 6. So we're going to have 20 over -12, and let's see, I can divide both of those by 4, so that would be -5/3 for my slope. So let's go ahead and plug in our numbers. There's my point slope form. And I'm going to pick the first point again. So let's do y minus 10 equals, okay, my slope was -5/3. And then x minus, but that's a -6, so it's going to make it x plus 6. And there it is in point slope form. And again, you could solve it for y if needed to, but we're just going to stop there for this one. So point slope form, a third way that you can write equations using equations for a line. And again, you'll be given the formula. You just got to know where to plug in your numbers.